Vonage has accelerated the world's ability to connect. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that we need to personalize those connections and get life balance. Back to you.
Hello, and welcome to Enterprise Connect 2021. I'm Father Robert Balacer, the digital Jesuit, your guide to all things in the enterprise. I'm here to give you a behind-the-scenes look at the world's premier show for enterprise communication and collaboration. Today, my guest is Mr. Savinay Berry. He is Executive Vice President of Product and Engineering at Vonage. Savinay, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me over here. I'm excited to be here at the conference.
Now, Vonage, of course, is one of the darlings of the unified communication space. From the 20-year-ago commercials that are still stuck in everyone's head, to the fact that you really introduced the mass populace to the idea of communications in the cloud, you have been driving this field. You are one of the originators. You are one of the innovators. You are one of the disruptors. So with that history and knowing that you've advanced your platform over the years, I got to ask, what brings Vonage to Enterprise Connect?
Vonage has been the innovators in the UC space for the longest time. It, in fact, started the entire category of VoIP. Now, I joined Vonage about 6 months ago. And one of the first things that I realized was how massively transformed the company had become in terms of its offerings from where it was in the early years of VoIP, right? So now we power solutions for our UC products for hundreds and thousands and millions of users worldwide. And not only that, we're providing a solution which is extremely focused on what's happening in the world over the last 12 to 18 months with the pandemic, and especially around what people are doing with their work. People talk about hybrid work. People talk about the concept of, how do you get back to work? Our point of view is that there is nothing like a work or a life balance. It's about life balance now. And how do you create that life balance where you make the technology work for you wherever you might be? So you might still be in your car, you might still be in your on the way to a doctor's appointment or something like that. And you still want to be able to connect with who you want to connect with at that point in time. How do you weave in those moments so that you're creating a life balance for yourself versus something which is explicit, where work and life are almost two different things? So I think for us, it's about connecting the dots of UC, which is what we've been providing for a long time, with our CC solutions and our API solutions, and being able to do one thing really, really well, which is accelerating the world's ability to connect. That's our vision. And for us to do that, how can we create that meaningful difference in somebody's life so they have that life balance? That's what's brought us to Enterprise Connect, and we're looking forward to the show.
I love the fact that you started this talking about life balance, because we've all had a crash course in it. The last 18, 20 months have been nothing but us learning how to use UC. Everybody. This has been the most rapid deployment of a technology in the history of mankind. We all are now clients, but you're right. There is that question of what is the balance. When my home is now my workplace, and this applies to everyone, how do we make sure that the tools actually integrate rather than denigrate the way that we work and we live? So let's talk about that, because yes, it's been amazing what has happened over the last couple of months in the deployment. But along with that amazing deployment, along with that rapid adoption, has come some hard lessons. We have seen in the industry some things that were promised to work that just didn't. From your perspective and from the perspective of Vonage, what are those hard-learned lessons? What are the things that just didn't work?
Yeah, great question there, Robert. I think, look, at the end of the day, I look at technology as being in the service of what people are trying to do. Technology for technology's sake only lasts for some period of time, and then after that, it just kind of fades away as a fad. So what we learned in the process over the last 12 to 18 months, I mean, we powered 15 billion plus voice calls, and then what we did on our enterprise side with powering 5 to 10 billion messages. People wanted delivery notifications, It almost felt like every single time you were looking outside your house, the number of packages that are coming on your porch just have doubled. And that happened purely because of the way we all started to order online, whether it was ordering food, ordering groceries, ordering even simple things like a toothpaste. I mean, who would have thought that you would order like a toothpaste and a toothbrush, just those two or three things online, and then be able to get it and do that every single week? So I think from a consumer behavior standpoint, I think our brains got wired very differently over the last 12 to 18 months. As they say, research actually has shown that anything you do for about 10,000 hours or 30 days changes the way your brains are wired. And here, what we are doing for the last 12 to 18 months have completely changed our expectations on what do we do when we buy something. When we buy something, how do we get support for it? So it's like, I want to pick up a phone or I want to message somebody. And in that context of a message, I want to get the answer right away. People talk about instant gratification only being something that the Gen Xers are doing. Well, I posit to say that it's not just the Gen X, it's all of us. I'm not a Gen Xer. It's millennials. It's the Gen Y. I mean, I think all of us got wired differently about that instant gratification. I need to know where my package is. I need to know if I'm going to get my food at this point in time, or is it going to get rained out? Or, I'm doing an exercise. I need to connect over a Peloton bike with somebody else who can also help me in training that. So I think the behaviors were totally different over the last 12 to 18 months. And this is something that's going to stay with us for a very, very long time. What we did to power that was we connected the dots between our UC and our CC and our API solution and provided a platform. We call it the Vonage Communication Platform, which has been the big evolution of Vonage over the last 5 to 10 years. And this Vonage Communication Platform allowed for all of these use cases to get scaled and enabled. Otherwise, you're living in a world where if it's UC only, well, guess what? We can have an audio conversation. We can have this meeting like we're doing remotely today. But then if I want to have a connection with you afterwards over a message, where I want to just text you and say, hey, it was great to connect with you. Here's my contact information. Or if I want to continue the conversation after the conference as well, how do I do that, right? I think it's that connectivity between UCCC and all the APIs that are accessible to you, whether it's voice, video, chat. That seamless connectivity is what weaves its way back into that life balance, which is, what is those moments that you can provide that make it easier for somebody to live their life? And whether it's getting a prescription message on, hey, your prescription is ready right now, and you can come pick it up, or asking a person in your neighborhood grocery store about if they have something in stock or not. It's that life balance of trying to enable that small communications between those, right? Now, to your question about what was hard, well, it was hard to personalize this for everybody. So you can do this at scale, where if it's the same exact message that needs to be delivered, then that's great. You could do that. But to be able to personalize at scale for millions of people, where it feels like you are being connected to a brand such that you're almost like talking to a friend, that is hard. And I think that's the part which we're still continuing to evolve on. Conversations are things which are, I think, going to be with us. Conversations with brands, they're going to be with us for a long period of time. That's where the world's going to. We don't want one-way notifications. We want to have a conversation with the brand, whether we are purchasing something from them or whether we're trying to get support from them. So how can we personalize that conversation and feel like we are actually doing something meaningful for that user, but it's only the population of one and that one user? That personalization is so critical. So I think that part is still missing, and that's the next challenge in front of us.
Thank you for bringing up that personalization, because it is far too easy to talk about just scale. Everything is about scale. Everything is about being able to deploy a solution rapidly. But I think you're spot on in the sense that it takes a while for people to learn these new systems, these new solutions. And then once they've learned them, they have to connect with them. And right. I want to talk a little bit about that. I know I'm asking you to look into the future here, but we're already talking about going to the hybrid office, bringing back the best of maybe a reimagined office, what the best of in-person meetings look like with the best of what we've learned from our UC systems. So in that new hybrid model, what kind of personalization do we need to look at? What are the little cues that clients should be considering as they create the future hybrid office?
Yeah, great question. I'll give you a real example on that, Robert. Actually, it's something that we experienced just recently being in a hybrid office location. I was visiting New York to meet with some of our teams, but not all of the team is based there. So we had some of the people dialing in from other parts of the country, in some cases, some other parts of the world as well. But we were not just doing a status update, which is a very simple, here's the presentation, here's what we need to do. We were actually trying to brainstorm on a whiteboard, which was in the room. And so we had a few people who were in the room connected via a conference call with a Polycom device, which was sitting in the middle. And then we had each of us has laptops, and we were connected over video over the laptops. And then you had a whiteboard, which was sitting behind, and you were trying to communicate these ideas for people who were dialing in over video again. So it was interesting. If somebody tried to explain an idea and the audio kept going to the point where you were talking over each other, right? Because you had the Polycom in the middle. And if you couldn't, for example, hear the other person, you got to shut down the Polycom and you got to take the audio, which is in front of you, which is your own laptop. And when you do that, then if somebody else wants to chime in, well, how do they do that? Because they can't hear the person. So then everybody needs to keep their audio on exactly at the same time. Well, if you do that, then you echo. So everybody hears their echo, and that's also not possible. So it got into this situation where we're like, there's no way this hybrid office will work. And what we were experiencing is not uncommon. This happens all the time. Imagine that times, a million. It happens all the time. So I think the workplace of the future, the hybrid office of the future, and what the UC system specifically will have to do, will have to figure out a way on what's happening behind the scenes for that one user when they're speaking. Maybe be able to look at some sentiments. Look at the facial gestures, look at the audio, being able to identify who's speaking. That's the easy part. We know that today. We know what to do there. But being able to distinguish between the audio of that one person with the audio of the second person with the audio of the third person, because that's what a conversation is, where you're talking about each other. It's not like I'm going to talk, pause, somebody else is going to go talk, pause, and somebody else is going to talk. That's not what a conversation is. That's a robotic discussion. That's not a conversation. So how do you get to the point where the audio is made in such a way that it can detect the different anomalies of these overlapping kind of audio discussions that are happening, while at the same time keeping focus on the video of whoever is doing the talking? And by the way, do that not just for the people who are in the room, but also who are externally dialing in.
This is the kind of innovation that made you such a disruptor 20 years ago, and I'm so happy to see that you're doing it again. I have been speaking with Savinay Berry. He is the Executive Vice President of Product and Engineering at Vonage. Savinay, if people wanted to find out more about Vonage, more about what you could do for them, where should they go?
Well, we have a booth, a very big presence over in the conference. And what I would recommend is go to the booth. We have a lot of different pods over there. We have a pod around customer service and engagement, around actually hybrid work. So you'll see a lot more about that as well. And conversational commerce, which is a category that is emerging. And it's something that we believe is going to actually take off quite a bit, because it goes back to my earlier example of how do you get that life balance? And if you want to buy something, how do you do that in the context of wherever you are, whatever you're doing? How do you turn the notifications you're getting into actual conversations? It lines up very nicely into that entire theme. So we have some fantastic demos. I would recommend go check it out.
Thank you again. I am Father Robert Balacer, and stay tabbed, because we've got plenty more from Enterprise Connect 2021.